Hey everybody, it's Chris Crazy House here to do a sketch blog. I'm letting you guys know that this is a special sketch blog. This sketch blog is going to be about the loss of my daughter, which happened last year. And so this is your disclaimer right now. If you don't want to hear a sad story about a dead child, then just turn it off right now. Uh, and the reason I'm doing this is I'm not doing this to get sympathy, or I'm not doing this so I can uh, get everyone to say, oh, poor Chris, we feel so bad for him. No, I'm doing this because I know there are other parents who have had losses out there. I know a lot of, just going to therapy and going to different support groups. There are parents and there are fathers, especially, that go through these things, and not saying that there's no pain on the female side, because there's lots of pain there. I mean, the child is growing inside of her, so there's a completely different connection. But usually, what happens when a child is lost, a lot of times it's up to the father to kind of hold things together, and a lot of times, many people are really concerned or as concerned about his feelings about the whole thing. Usually, from what I've gotten the consensus of, and people will ask, if they talk to the father about it, they'll say, how's your wife doing? And, they don't think, it's not something that men are looked upon as having any type of feelings or anything. It's like I guess we just supply the sperm and that's it. But yeah, I'm gonna talk about my experience, and hopefully it'll help anyone who's gone through the same thing. Well, started off last year. My wife and I, she was pregnant, and we were. I mean, I was as happy as can be. This wasn't an oops baby. This was very much planned. We always wanted to wait until we were at a good financial situation to have children. And so it wasn't it wasn't an accident, and it was very much planned. And uh, I would say uh, it didn't come at the exact time that we thought. It was almost like a very pleasant surprise, and I actually found out on a major holiday that my wife was pregnant, and so that was a weird thing for me, because I usually don't celebrate major holidays, but this was a pleasant surprise. So, like I said, yeah, it was a planned pregnancy, and my wife and I are very, how do I say it? I guess we're overly responsible. We like to plan things a lot ahead of time, so we were, I guess, buying stuff, but we weren't really buying a whole bunch of things because we didn't know what the sex of the child was yet, and we wanted to find out and get the anatomy scan to find out first before we decided to do that. So, about this week last year, we went in to get the anatomy scan a day before my wife's birthday, and just to put in perspective, this was I vividly recall the whole week. So I remember sitting there as we were waiting to go get our anatomy scan. I remember on the news they were showing the Aurora Batman shooting, that crazy dude that shot up those people at the screening of The Dark Knight Rises, and just remarking about just how ridiculous this guy looks and how he should go to jail for the rest of his life, or at least get the death penalty. But we went in there, and all I'm thinking about is, you know, once we find out the sex, I can go hardcore into buying stuff for this child. And I was thinking about that afternoon of what I had to do, because I was at crunch time with some this game project. For everyone that doesn't know, I was working on the Yumbies at that time, and I was finishing a lot of the extra stuff for the Yumbies, like the different outfits that you could buy. And I knew I had to do that afternoon. So we go in there. We're getting the anatomy scan. The The lady tells us it's a girl, and or the technician tells us it's a girl, and you know, I had thought it might have been a boy, but I was very happy that it was a girl too. I'll be happy with either way, but my wife has been joking with me for years that I was just gonna, if we have a girl, I was just gonna spoil her rotten pretty much. And I can honestly say that probably would have happened. I I I would try to, as far as having her with me a lot, she probably would have spent a lot of time with me since I work from home. But yeah, I was very very excited about having a girl. But the technician said she noticed something, and she wouldn't say what the problem was just yet. But then she called in the doctor. The doctor took a look, and what the problem was is that they uh, uh, my wife's cervix was shortening, and it's called, the term is, I think the medical term is actually called incompetent cervix. And what happens is the cervix starts opening or shortening before it's time for the baby to be delivered. I mean, we were only not even halfway through the pregnancy yet. We were only about coming up on 6 months. So my daughter was not ready to come yet, but the sac was already, they said the sac was already bulging for my wife's cervix. And that afternoon, we had went in and had an emergency cerclage put in. Uh, thank the doctors for doing that. But the first doctor that we had that did the first examination, it was a female doctor, and it's just, for me, it was crazy just how the doctor was talking to us. Like she had already, before we even found out that we could have an emergency surgery, she was saying to us, next time when you come in, you'll get more frequently checked. That way we'll be able to find out if the cervix is shortening ahead of time. So essentially, the way she was talking to us was like, your daughter's already dead, and I know you came in here happy to find out what the sex of your child was, but uh, too bad, so sad, better luck next time. That's the way it felt like she was saying that to me. And I'll say this, that I could see the look on my wife's face at that point, and that was to me, that's one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my life. And not just hearing that, but just seeing the pain on my wife's face, to see her going from being extremely happy that morning and, all the plans we had made, and then seeing the look on her face change. And that's something that uh, I don't wish on my worst enemy, the feelings in that look. It's a horrible thing. And I've heard other guys, when I've gone to support group, I've heard them say the same thing. So, and that's a big part of my pain as well. It's not just losing a baby; it's the pain that my wife goes through. Because as a man and as a father and as a husband, you want to be the protector, and you always want to be in control. You think you're taking care of everything, but there are certain things in this world that are just completely out of your control, and that feeling of helplessness, especially for, like I said, if you're a guy like me who's been taking care of themselves since they were 17, and you've been working since 13, you've always had this image of yourself in your mind that you can handle anything. And when something like this comes up, it's completely out of your control. Even if you're a doctor, I think your cage will be rattled, because you can't think about this analytically. You're thinking about, this is my child. So yeah, we had this emergency cerclage, and we went for about a week. Um, my wife had to be on bed rest, and I was taking care of everything and hoping everything would go well, and you know, doing, like I said, just trying my best to keep things together here. And I remember the day of that surgery, that's when we named our daughter Morgan. It was a choice of my wife. She had been thinking about some baby names, and that was one of the ones she tossed out. We decided to name her. We didn't want her to go without a name if anything bad happened. And yeah, 4 days later, you know, the worst thing that could ever happen happened, and My wife was having some pain, and I took her to the hospital. And what we found out was she was had because the sac was already bulging, and even with the emergency surgery, it had caused an infection, and she started was going into labor. Um, I was hoping for the best all the way up until that Friday evening when my wife was pleading to me, saying get the doctor because there's blood coming and stuff like that. So that's when all my hopes kind of just went out the window. And I talked to the doctor privately, and they were saying that I was asking what could they do, and all they were telling me was like if I mean they were telling me that I could uh, potentially lose my wife as well because of the infection. So they took out the cerclage, and my wife went into labor that night, and our baby came, and she was just too. She was premature, so she couldn't survive outside the womb, and she was stillborn. And they give you they give you this opportunity, and you get to take pictures and do all this other stuff, and it's really hollow, and it's not the family picture that you wanted, because we have a picture with my wife, me, and our daughter, and that's not the family picture that I imagined in my mind uh, when we set out on this journey to get pregnant and have children. So, and like my wife she was in the hospital for a couple of days after that, and even after they released her from the hospital, she was bedridden. I had to take care of her, and I think for me at that point, the pain didn't really hit me just then. I was completely numb, and in my mind, I just knew I had to take care of my wife, and I had a household to take care of. I continued my job. I didn't stop working because we needed the money to pay for stuff. So I was just really just going like a machine the whole time. Like it was just I was just running on automatic the whole time, and I don't even. I honestly that whole August I don't remember much. I know I went to OnyxCon and tried to put on the best face that I could there, but I was not into being there like I usually am. So the pain didn't really hit me until I guess later on when we got to the what was supposed to be my daughter's actual due date. Once that came, and after that, and I think also because work slowed down or whatever, all the deadlines were finished. I was actually able to sit there and think, and doing that, that's when a lot of the pain showed up. And yes, I cried. I mean, I don't see what human being wouldn't, or what human being wouldn't cry, or who wouldn't be depressed. I went through a lot of things like where my weight would fluctuate. Like I literally lost like 15 pounds just because I just wasn't hungry. I just wouldn't eat. I didn't feel like eating. And so you're gonna go on this emotional roller coaster, and it's gonna be hard. But I want people to know that you can come out the other side okay. If you've heard my sketch blogs since then, if you become a fan recently, you know that I've continued on. I do believe that there's a future out there, and there's a future for me having other children. But I'm never going to forget the one that we lost, and this is always going to be my first child. And how a parent always says, this when they have kids, this will always be my baby. Literally, Morgan is always going to be my baby. And so, if you have any questions, or if you want to share your story in the comments, please feel free. And peace out.